I'm going to explain it to you as I would explain it to a judge in litigation. So I'm going to use an analogy. What happened in the mid 2015, around there, a crowd of very, very, very clever techies decided to get together, having seen Bitcoin, and they said, hey, let's actually create something that's bigger than Bitcoin, something that has the ability to write a smart contract on it. What is a smart contract? Imagine your vending machine. Coca-Cola vending machine, you put a coin in and you get the Coke out. There's no human in between. That's what your smart contract is. That smart contract can go on a blockchain. What is a blockchain? Very, very briefly, they asked everybody in the world who has a computer to give up a portion of their hard drives on their computer, and they get paid for that. So it's kind of letting a portion of their hard drive, and all the information will be stored on all these hard drives. So if you were to bomb Australia and Australia were to disappear, the information would be mirrored elsewhere. And that's effectively what a blockchain is. I'm not going to go into the cryptography and how that works, but the word immutable means that you cannot change it. I think it's important in that context that I'm actually going to kick off by taking you through my journey so you understand how I got here, how a lawyer got here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch on the regulations that everybody knows about. When I say everybody, if you Google South Africa regulations, I'll touch on that. But the real meat of my presentation today is in relation to real-world assets and how we can make this work in South Africa in the context of real-world assets. And when I refer to real-world assets, I'm talking about taking a house, fractionalizing it, tokenizing it, taking a house, transferring the house as a token on your phone, securities, shares, debt, bonds. That is where I'm going to go. And it's very, very, very unique in the sense that you won't be able to Google this, you won't be able to find this. This has taken us 2 years of work to figure out. Kicking off my journey, we had lockdown. Our president called upon us to industry to come together and to assist companies in distress. IQ Business Group and Schindler's, we put together an organization called COBRA, stands for COVID Business Rescue Assistance. We put together over 100 partners, corporate partners, including Microsoft, Aon, and 99 other partners, and we assisted over 600 companies over 2 years over the lockdown. One of the companies that approached us, or one of the institutions that approached us, was Lily's Leaf. They came to us, the trustees of Lily's Leaf said, we cannot open our doors. Please help. How do we help? What we did is we took the business analysts and we said, is there a possibility of helping out here? Is there a possibility of opening the doors? They said, without money, absolutely not. And the Department of Public Works weren't prepared to pay because there had to be a forensic audit. And Lily's Leaf was in huge trouble. So what did we do? As Cobra, we decided to turn to blockchain. We went into archives, we scanned Nelson Mandela's warrant of arrest, the original, we only scanned it, and we scanned Oliver Tambo's gun pen to raise money. We sold it on auction and we got $190,000 for that scan over there that's on the blockchain. We literally opened up Lily's Leaf, we got pumps to drain the water. It was flooding, there was security, there was vandalism. We reopened Lily's Leaf as a result of a novel use of blockchain tech. We did the same for rhino horn conservation. What we did here is we took an ethical rhino horn, we went to Fidelity Safes, we scanned it, we put it on auction. That rhino horn over there sold for 130,000 USD. Not the horn itself, the NFT representing the horn. The King of the Ndebele's approached us. This is the Kauri, and he said, please, can you help our people? Can you help South Africa? We said, let's take this upon ourselves. Let's see what we can do again in the blockchain space. We created the Kauri token, the world's first gifting token. We weren't prepared to put South Africans at risk, so we created a legal structure where amounts were going to escrow. The amount would only be released if the South African sold the token. It would be released from escrow and it would go into a community trust there to help South Africans in all respects. When I say all respects, from education to sports to social development and more. Really interesting. We had the king, and this is where things became pretty much more legal than tech. The king of the Ndebele's approached us and he said he has 350,000 hectares of land, and this land is owned by these trusts. It's a legacy of the past. The occupiers of the land have absolutely no ability to tokenize, or to raise capital rather, over the land. So the solution that we came up with is, what if we're able to tokenize land rights? What if we're able legally to take land rights and represent those as a token? And what if we're able to actually go to a bank and pledge that to a bank to actually raise capital for those occupiers? I'm going to get back to that a bit later because we've come up with the model. We literally are at the point where we can transfer land rights as tokens on one's phone. Time for lawyers to rise. That's really my thesis. My thesis is that up till now, what we've had is we've had techies going at it alone. What the techies have been doing is they've been trying to build, and they've been getting into a whole lot of trouble with the SEC. You hear about it, you hear about Binance, you hear about celebrities being nailed, they're being fined. Why? Because there are no lawyers who understand the space. I've been going around the world giving a presentation of this nature, and I've been saying to my colleagues around the world, it's time for us to rise up. The reason I've got a Bored Apes up there is if you read the terms and conditions of Bored Apes, that sells for millions of dollars. Read the terms and conditions. They say you own the copyright. Absolute nonsense. An assignment of copyright has to be in writing and signed by the parties. So whilst the Bored Apes techies wanted to transfer copyright, they weren't able to. What I saw were attorneys around the world writing about this, saying how ridiculous is this, as opposed to coming up with a solution. And it's important that attorneys come up with a solution. Why? Because we have what I refer to as crypto 1.0. Those are your cryptocurrencies that we all know about. Crypto 2.0 is you have these art NFTs that sold for millions and now are valueless. And crypto 3.0 is the tokenization of real world assets. Now there's a big distinction between a cryptocurrency and a token that represents a real world asset. A cryptocurrency is a store of value. The cryptocurrency itself is where the value lies. You lose that cryptocurrency, you've lost the token forever. What we're talking of here, from a legal perspective, is a token as a representation of value. A share certificate is not worth it. It has value in the underlying asset. That's what we're referring to here. So importantly, if one were to theoretically lose the token, it can be replaced. So long as the institution who issued the token have systems in place, it's not as though it's lost forever. So what I'm going to be focusing on today is tokenization as a representation of value, and we're going to look at our financial, is everybody okay? Okay. Financial Markets Act and other applicable legislation to see how this can be done. I'm going to start off by saying that South Africa is in a very, very unique position because we have methodologies, legal methodologies that can be employed for the tokenization of real-world assets, which you won't find in Dubai, you won't find in the United States, you won't find in Europe, and I recently looked at Seychelles and you won't find it there. Starting off with the fractionalization of an asset. We took, on behalf of Moment and on behalf of Scoin, we took a 20 million rand gold coin set. They asked us to fractionalize it in the form of NFTs, over 5,000 NFTs. How did we do it? The attorneys had to rise up. We created a new legal instrument called a NASTI. It stands for NFT Asset Sales Transaction Instrument. The actual agreement is embedded in the NFT, and the purpose of embedding the contract in the NFT is to bind downstream purchases. No one's signing anything. If you're going to buy the NFT and you're going to buy a portion of that gold, which is really amounts to a commodity, it's important that the downstream purchaser agrees to it, and that's where the nasty comes in. It's literally a written agreement that's been signed by Scoin, it's been signed by Moment, and it's embedded. If you go onto the Moment site, you'll find the agreement there, and that is literally the world's first nasty agreement. I'm going to go through the law. I'm going to touch on it, and I'm going to deal with the problems, and then eventually we're going to get to the solutions. So in terms of our Financial Advisory and Intermediary Act, we have securities, we have shares, we have debentures, we have money market instruments, we have warrants, and any security as defined in the Financial Markets Act. It goes on, it talks of collective investment schemes and other similar instruments. Now, this is where the legislature, the regulators came in, and they included crypto asset in this definition. And a crypto asset, I disagree with this definition because it refers to a representation of value that it says is not issued by a central bank but is capable of being traded, transferred, or stored electronically by natural legal persons for the purpose of payment, investment, and other forms of utility. Applies cryptographic techniques and is used as distributed ledger technology. A client, in the context of the Act, means a specific person or group of persons excluding the general public. Quite important there, it excludes the general public. So when it comes to phase and the definition of a client and the applicability of this, it's relevant. Advice. So this is where the regulator comes in. You cannot give advice now compared to about a year ago. You cannot give advice in relation to crypto assets unless you're registered with phase. So don't give anybody advice. If you're going to start the business of giving advice in the crypto space, please don't, because you will be subject to sanction by the FSCA. An intermediary, also in terms of the Act, an intermediary includes an exchange. So an exchange now, a crypto exchange, has to be registered with the FSCA. It has to be licensed. Now, what's interesting here is that there's an exemption in the Act that applies to NFTs. The regulator has decided to take NFTs and exclude NFTs from the definition of a crypto asset. And I'm going to read this to you because it's quite important. Currently, there are no laws or regulations that apply to NFTs in the majority of international jurisdictions. For instance, in the United States and the United Kingdom, there are no specific NFT regulations, but certain NFT crypto asset types may fall under existing federal laws in the United States due to the wide treatment of crypto assets as securities. Under the security laws of the United States, for example, the Security and Exchange, the SEC, may treat certain types of NFTs as security. In Germany, the German government stated that no changes to the legal system were anticipated as a result of the development of NFTs last year. In Singapore, and it goes on. As such, the FSCA's view is that NFTs should not be subject to it. Why? Because we already have the law there. We've had the law for decades. It's the law in relation to securities that counts. It's not the law in relation to cryptocurrencies. And that's my focus, and that's where hopefully I'll be able to explain the solution. And just incidentally, to exclude NFTs is very weird because you have an ERC20, which is included. An ERC20 are your meme coins. It's your standard cryptocurrency. If somebody wants to issue a token like the Cowrie token is in ERC20. An ERC721 is not regarded as a crypto asset in terms of our law. And I've got an ERC1155 there because that protocol over there is both an NFT and an ERC20. It's in one. So it's a bit confused. And it'll be interesting to see what the regulators do when it comes to protocols such as that one. In South Africa, what we did is we scoured our legislation to try and work out how we can find gaps in legislation to, well, first we wanted to determine whether one could simply trade a share or a debenture or a derivative or a note as an NFT. I mean, how amazing would that be? You actually take a debt instrument, you can put it on the chain, and you can start trading it in competition with the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. I mean, where would the stock exchange be? Unfortunately, well, or fortunately, it's covered by our Financial Markets Act. Our Financial Markets Act goes further. It defines units in collective investment schemes, and it deals with other securities, and it opens it up that the regulator can include in its definition similar instruments. An exchange here, and this is now a stock exchange in terms of the Financial Markets Act, means a person who considers, maintains, and provides an infrastructure for bringing together buyers and sellers of securities. So the moment you register a real-world asset exchange in South Africa and you start trading these instruments by way of that exchange, you actually have to register as a stock exchange, which is prohibitive. I think we've only got a handful of stock exchanges in South Africa, and it costs an absolute fortune to launch. Our Companies Act defines securities along the similar lines, and raise our co-ops. We all know co-ops in South Africa. Believe it or not, the shares in a co-op does not find its way into any definition of security in terms of our Financial Markets Act. I can only imagine that when the Act was promulgated, they had absolutely no idea that blockchain and these exchanges would arise where these securities could be traded. So if we were to form a co-op, which is an ideal structure for a decentralized autonomous organization, and we were to put those shares on the blockchain as securities, that would be permissible. So our co-ops is allowed. There are certain issues, such as if you're a member and a shareholder, you can have 20% of the shares in a co-op, and you only get one vote in respect to those shares. There are exceptions when it comes to Category C co-ops, but I won't go into that much detail. And that's a decentralized autonomous organization where a co-op is perfectly suited. In fact, I saw a webinar, a whole lot of profs at Stanford University, and they said, when it comes to a DAO, what is it? Is it a partnership? Is it an association? And they concluded that a co-op would be the best legal structure to implement for a DAO. So you'd have the legal protection. The Collective Investment Schemes Act. Okay, now another hurdle, another problem. Over here, a portfolio means a group of assets, including any amount of cash. Now, the Collective Investment Schemes Act is when you go to a broker and you want to invest in a portfolio of a whole lot of assets. The broker goes and sells that to you, and you give the broker money, and they make the decisions for you. What I want you to underline mentally is the fact that a portfolio is a group of assets. It doesn't constitute a single asset. You'll see here that a collective investment scheme is defined as a participatory interest in a portfolio. That means in an asset, a group of assets, not a single asset, which has become relevant now. Participatory interest means an interest in an undivided share or share in the assets. Now we're getting closer to real-world tokenization. We're now talking a participatory interest. I'll talk through the vehicles that one would look at there. This is it. This is the Alternative Investment Fund, is the gap we have in our law to actually create real-world asset tokenization where there is this legal nexus. I was speaking to Steve earlier, and he says, you know, we have all these companies, all these techies, and they're saying, here is a NFT, here is an asset, but there is no legal connection. The problem that most of them face, and most of the work I'm doing for clients, is actually undoing the mess that they've created for themselves, because you can't do it. But here's your gap. It's known as an alternative investment fund, and I'm going to add to that, it's got to be an alternative investment single asset fund. Single asset, why? Because otherwise it becomes a portfolio, and then it's subject to the Collective Investment Schemes Act. So here we have the definition of an alternative investment fund. It's been incorporated into phase, so it's part of our law. You do need to be licensed. You don't have to be a stock exchange. So you need to be a financial service provider to be involved or to manage the fund. Over there, it carries on in relation to the definition. And it goes on there. So this the Alternative Investment Fund is going to, there's a bill that hasn't been enacted. It's actually going to be, there's going to be greater regulation in relation to it, but it's not there now, but it is regulated, and I'll take you through that. So the two vehicles that we're currently using for the tokenization of real-world assets, these are securities, these are the vehicles that we're employing for big exchanges, and I'll show you later another exchange that we're involved in, are a partnership. It's known as a limited liability partnership with a single asset in it, or a bevint trust. A bevint trust is where the trustees don't own the asset, the beneficiaries do. So a bevint trust is very similar to your unit trusts. We now draft token trusts. The token holders are the beneficiaries of the trust, and the trust owns the asset. So let's say you wanted to start a sausage saloon, as an example. Crowdfunding by way of tokens. What would happen is we'd either form a trust or a partnership. We'd go out there and we'd say, what assets should there be? Well, you want to borrow money. How much money do you want to borrow? I want to borrow 10 million rands. Great. Let's raise 10 million rands through token holders, through the tokenization. That money will then go into the fund. The fund will own a single asset. Let's say it's a debt. Let's say it's a debenture. The fund will own the debenture, and if it's a partnership, the general partner will administer it, but there won't be much for that general partner to do. Why? Because it's an acknowledgement of debt. In effect, all the general partner has to do is to make sure that the acknowledgement gets paid, the amount gets paid, and the return of investment gets ultimately paid to the token holders. Sorry, I'm rushing because I know there are going to be lots of questions, and I prefer questions than listening to myself talk. Okay, so Schindler's X. This is what we've built. This is going to be launched next week. This is a real-world asset marketplace brought to you by an attorney's firm. We have our own techies involved who work at Schindler's. And this is going to be a real-world asset exchange that we're opening up for absolutely everybody out there. So if somebody wants to start that sausage saloon or wants to list a property, they can. These are our upcoming brand listings. We have Broll. Broll are coming in to tokenize buildings worth absolute millions. We have Libex. They're actually an exchange that are competing with us. We're tokenizing debt in relation to the Marriott Hotel in Hyde Park. The Lifestyle Granada, that's a $64 million raise in relation to an aesthetics clinic to be built in the country of Granada. We're raising the funds through the tokenization and through those legal structures. Basani Medical, that's also a dollar-based raise. It's in relation to a South African company. They are in the medical marijuana business. They need to do a raise, and they actually want to replace existing debt with the bank. The beauty of this structure is that if you want money, you've got to go to the bank, and you've got to ask the bank for money, and they come to you with their own terms of borrowing. With us, what happens is you dictate the terms of borrowing. It's got to be appealing to the token holder, but the actual debt instrument sets out the terms and conditions, and that's why when it comes to the likes of Basani and other clients who we haven't actually got on here, they want to replace bank debt so they don't have to deal with the covenants that come with it, and very, very often the debt's expensive. This is very close to my heart. This was a difficult nut to crack. How do you transfer your house on your phone as a token? We put together a legal structure, not through those funds, because if you have a trust, then you're a beneficiary of a trust. What we wanted is that you actually have real property rights as a token holder, as opposed to there being a barrier between you and the actual property. And we've done this by emulating the waterfall model. Now, in waterfall estates in Midrand, there are 99-year leases in place. You actually don't buy a property there, you enter into a 99-year lease. And 99-year leases are ideally suited because there's no transfer in relation to 99-year leases. So if we get this right, when you tokenize the property and you transfer the property on your phone from one MetaMask to the other, there won't be transfer duty, but the rights will come across with it. And we've done it by employing the 99-year lease model. There are two companies that we call fiduciary companies that have to be in place, but I don't know if there are any banking representatives here any longer, but you can lend against this, and the execution process in relation to a default is immediate. There's no need to actually go to court and execute on a bond. We're getting a lot of these solar projects. You'll have seen that our president put together an incentive both for individuals and corporations to invest in renewable energy. It's known as 12BA of the Income Tax Act, where institutions can get back 125% of the actual cost. Now imagine you can tokenize this. Well, we are tokenizing this. We're tokenizing this through partnerships, on commodity partnerships, the limited liability partnerships. The investor's interest is represented as that token, and you buy the token off our exchange and you'll get 125% back as a deduction. And if there's a coupon related to that, so if interest is paid on that amount, the interest gets paid, and it goes to whoever the owner is. So if you transfer your token from my phone to your phone outside of an exchange, and this is very, very important because people are going to say, how do you do this? How do you do it with XCon? How do I send a return of investment to a token when I don't know who owns the token? How do I know that I'm not sending it to a triad in China? Well, we know how to do that. We will drop it. We can transfer the value to that triad in China, and the mafia at Sicily, without breaching XCon and without breaching KYC, anti-money laundering regulations, international regulations. Just to introduce you guys to an organization that we're forming. It's the South African Institute of Blockchain Practitioners. The reason or the thinking behind it is we are at the forefront of innovation, but in particular, the legal complexities of the innovation of blockchain. And without legal assistance and without the legal IP, innovation will be stifled in South Africa. This is a non-profit organization that we're putting together for anybody to plug in. We're doing courses, and we will be sharing all the IP that I've made mention of now, and more. And that's it. Thank you. So I've rushed through this. You can applaud. Go for it. I've intentionally rushed through this because I think it's very, very important that I address questions. Go for it. Steve.
Thanks, terrific presentation. I've got two questions. In the United States, where people who wanted to sell homes were facing the same issues, sell homes on the blockchain, and were obviously not able to convince municipalities to change their legacy systems to blockchain systems, what they did is they put the home into a limited liability partnership, and then all the NFT was transfer the ownership of the partnership, which meant that the house moved along with it without having to actually worry about the deed. Why weren't you able to do the same thing?
No, we can. So the way we're doing it is either through limited liability partnerships, or you can do it through the trust I made mention of. Yeah. There's another principle, and that is that the FIDCO that I made mention of, the fiduciary company, actually will enter into the lease on behalf of an undisclosed principal, and that's the token holder. So there's that methodology as well. Now, interestingly, in the United States, that is defined as a security. There's a 1984 judgment where the partnership interests are regarded as securities. So I'd be interested to see how they did that.
Ouch, okay.
Yeah.
The second one, as you mentioned, you were able to move tokens around on a non-custodial basis without having to do the KYC for real-world assets. The obvious question is, why would you want to do that?
Well, it's about creating a permissionless environment. If we can crack it and it not be a permissioned environment with a degree of centralization, that would be the ultimate if you can overcome those
So it's just to broaden your market, basically.
Well, it's basically so you're not limited to an exchange, so that you can go all in at a poker game with your property. There will be no need to actually go to the exchange. You can transfer it MetaMask to MetaMask.
Right.
So the return of investment is the difficult part, because now we have to pay that return of investment out to third parties, and we don't know where they are. They're anonymous. They're not on our, because the token may have been transferred. And the way we're doing that is with a limited stable coin. And I say limited, you can only cash it in at Schindler's X. LiveX have done the same. So what happens is you pay the return of investment out. Let's say the triad gets it. He's now sitting in China. He can't do anything with it. If he wants to cash it in, he has to come to South Africa, swap it out for USDT. If he swaps it out for USDT and takes the USDT out, we will have AML'd him.
Right, got it.
Yeah, we'll know who he is, and then if he takes it across, that's not our obligation. So the moment the USDT goes across, he'll be in contravention of the ex-con, but we'll have complied with all our obligations.
Good, thank you.
Good day, everyone.
Ah.
Over here.
Oh, there, sorry, Alf.
So I'd like to ask, in regards to the South African Institute of Blockchain Practitioners, in relation to students, is there any plans into integrating that into our faculty of law and supply chain? How are you going to migrate that into our curriculum as a point from an NPO's perspective?
So our primary objective is to actually deal with students. Mm-hmm. We already had an intake of students last year. We went through training with them, and we also offered them internships. The idea is to do that throughout the year. So as funding comes in, what happened was we raised funding last year, and we used that for the education and for the program. As funding comes in, we're going to do the same. We haven't launched it officially.
Okay.
We're onboarding founding members. The founding members have to vote on the constitution, and guess what? We're running it as a co-op. We actually want people to live a tokenized co-op as the institute, so you can transfer your membership as a token. So that's about to happen. We will vote, and we've got to vote on fees and raise money, and the whole idea is to actually look after students and to bring them up to speed.
Okay.
We're in a very unique situation in South Africa. I can tokenize a partnership interest in Dubai, mm-hmm. or a foreign partnership interest. I can keep everything offshore, and it's permissible to actually trade it in South Africa, whereas it wouldn't be in the United States,
True.
Which is a gap. It's something that we can all make use of. It's something that we should exploit, because it's, as I said, a partnership interest in the United States is regarded as a security, but it isn't here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm Swangile. I'm a lecturer in the Department of Transport and Supply Chain Management within University of Johannesburg, and that is my student right there who was asking a question. So I have a different question, but I want to elaborate into her question first. She is actually saying, how best can it be embedded in their curricula, because they are logistics students, and going out there for them to be competitive, they need to show it within their academic record that they have done blockchain and they are good at it, something like that. Yes.
That's what the Institute's for. Please invite me to any academic seminar or lecture. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm passionate about. I want to, everything I've showed you over here, people are saying to me, that's a trade secret. Why are you telling people? Rather do it as Schindler's X. My directors are saying that. I'm saying, no, we're not going to stifle innovation in South Africa. We actually want to open it up. We want to educate. Okay? As we come across concepts such as this, let's share it with absolutely everybody so it's not stifled, and that's what the Institute's for. There's an email address, so if anybody wants to join, just go on there and we'll put you on a WhatsApp group and we'll get the ball rolling. But the idea is also to tailor, in whatever department you're at, the concept of blockchain and the utility of the blockchain in that space. I mean, blockchain, we've built a smart contract in the insurance industry where the moment the death certificate's paid, it's a funeral policy by Home Affairs, the payout happens. There won't be a need to actually take a body to Old Mutual to get paid, as once happened. Okay? It just happens, and that's the insurance sector. So, yeah, whatever sector you're from, I'm here. as the institute, but also as a fellow South African.
Thank you very much. That was to help her with the question, but I have mine. So my question is around the cooperatives. I have lately been hearing the e-hailing drivers complaining a lot around their companies where they are working, like their main companies, and how they are ripped off whenever there are promotions and what, and this has been going on. As is something that is not talked about, but there's a lot of bullying happening within the drivers in e-hailing sector. And this came into my mind, but I thought about it and I shut it down because co-ops are not really doing well in South Africa. How about having that e-hailing co-op, cooperative enterprise, and then letting the drivers and the owners of those cars having to benefit other than the profit going to just one company? Is it something that is possible? And if it's possible, are you seeing your company or the institute having a collaboration on such project in higher education, perhaps with professors or just academics?
So it's totally possible. Okay, and it's something that should be looked at, but it's a question of bandwidth. We can't do absolutely everything, and that's why the Schindler's X Exchange is actually built not for us to necessarily put projects on there, but for us to facilitate you putting a project on there. So if there's a co-op, if there's an idea around, let's say, creating a co-op for e-hailing drivers, where they can even maybe look at a financing model, for those who want to enter. There's so much you can do with it. That's why we set up the Schindler's X platform, so that you engage with us and we can, 90% of it's law. The 10% is the tech, the 10% is very, very easy. The tech's there, it's being built, but it's the legal side which is difficult, and that's where we are. We're here to assist. You've had your hand up several times, so I think I owe it to you.
Thank you so much for a very good presentations. Regression is one of the top key in my class I teach for blockchain for business for our MBA. I struggled really to get the regression materials locally, so we ended up using mainly from Europe and the US, which they are in the forefront, and Singapore. Next time I'll bring it to my class because you do a better job in the local context.
Thank you.
So I have two specific questions. It's more about the platform you're about to launch. I think it is really needed, and maybe it is overdue. But I was just wondering what the minimum ticket size for an entity to participate on the marketplace, and what is the participation fee. So imagine I have the students, my MBA class of 2023, they want to create a community engagement project where they have to create tokens within your platform. How much fee do they have to pay to get the service, and what is the minimum ticket size?
Okay, so when you go through the portal, particularly in Lubex, you'll see the minimum ticket size for the Hyde Park Hotel is 10 rands. So we're literally democratizing real estate investment. You can buy 1,000, you can buy whatever, but it's a minimum ticket size of 10 rands. When it comes to the fees, and this is quite important, you have the platform fees, you have the royalties. Now, I just want to mention the royalties. I mentioned smart contracts to you. You can come to us as a project owner, create a project that runs for 10 years. Let's say there's a 10-year debt instrument, and let's say there are 10 million tokens that are trading. The project owner, we can build into the smart contract that for every trade, a royalty gets paid to the project owner. So now just think of that. You not only come up with a project, you don't only raise capital for the project, but you also have this new revenue stream, which is that. Our listing fee at the moment is 250,000 rands to list. That's if you're a big corporate. When it comes to the smaller guys, we're doing a whole host on risk. We are not charging, so it's really dependent on what your project's about. The sports project that you'll have seen there, that's to uplift sportsmen. That's actually probably the most work we've done, and we're doing that pro bono. And we're open to pro bono projects because obviously that's where the real value lies. Yeah.
So, Maurice, you've shown the different ERC standards, 2721, 1155. Apparently, there's one that's called, I think, ERC 2535, which is about it's called the Diamond Standard, but it's where you can take a smart contract and further subdivide it into sub-functions and outsource that functions. How does that play into the, what you call it, the regulation in terms of a single digital asset then if it's subdivided?
Well, that's the grey area.
Okay.
Is that the legislature has referred to non-fungible tokens, but what we're actually talking about are really semi-fungible tokens, as any one of our listing projects are semi-fungible. And because we're using the 721 standard, it's regarded as an NFT standard. Now, the grey areas are when it comes to those double standards, where you can have a separate identity and you can create a separate fungible token like the ERC 1155. And I don't think the legislature's even contemplated that. But if I were to go to court, because as an exchange, as a crypto exchange, if you're not in the financial markets arena and you're only selling ERC 721s, which are NFTs, you actually don't have to register as a crypto asset service provider, though we do recommend that you register.
Cool. Thank you.
There's that grey area. We don't know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maurice, for the presentation. You mentioned that SA is in a unique place in terms of asset tokenization, right, compared to other jurisdictions. Do you mind elaborating on the specific reasons why?
Sure.
Right, and then secondly, I think you said about Nasty, right? I was wondering what the difference is between Nasty, the NFT platform that you mentioned, and then other platforms, maybe not necessarily blockchain powered, that also allow for fractionalization of shares of securities or even
Yes.
gold, for instance.
So I'm not sure what happens under the hood with the likes of Easy Equities, Easy Properties, and the like, but you'll notice that there are FSPs. So there are registered FSPs there. We are actually scheduled to have a meeting with them, get an idea of how they actually do it. But I think what they're doing is they've actually it's a collective investment, and they're treating it as a collective investment. And it's obviously centralized. They can't transfer it MetaMask to MetaMask. On the unique opportunity that we have, it's because I cannot find another jurisdiction where we can list assets, these securities, if you want to call it, or these partnership interests outside of the definition of security. Everywhere you look, I mean, the United States in particular, it's regarded as a security. Seychelles, it's regarded as a security. In Dubai, in the UAE, regarded as a security. So we have it as an alternative investment fund. It should stay that way. It's subject to the FSCA. It's subject to the FSCA oversight. But it really opens up opportunities to South Africans who want to start businesses in the asset tokenization space. And what we're doing there is we're also building exchanges in competition with us, with all the, we're a turnkey solution. And the reason we're doing that is to get us off the ground as South Africans, to create these opportunities, to become known as the go-to destination when it comes to registering real-world asset exchanges. And we're using the same order book. So we've got an API in the back end so to enhance liquidity. We're working with exchanges like OVEX. I mentioned LibEx. We're going to have the same assets on multiple exchanges. So if anybody here who's leaving university who wants to start their own real-world asset exchange, you know who to call. Great. Thank you.
Maurice, thank you very much. I think that was also it opened up my eyes, because what Maurice basically taught us is to keep the narrative simple. I love the the vending machine as the example of a smart contract. And also what was very important is that you've broken down the regulatory frameworks, showed us each of the statements, and allowed us to interpret the regulatory framework to see what's possible and do what we need to do in terms of blockchain and digital assets within the regulatory framework and not breaking the law. So thank you very much for that. Okay. Cool. So as we're continuing our journey through the blockchain landscape, our next speaker is a true visionary in this field, okay? And Dr. Ntsibani is going to basically enlighten us on the latest trends that are shaping the future of blockchain. And about Dr. Ntsibani is the center head for the fourth industrial revolution for South Africa at the C4IRSA, at the CSIR, and he was also previously the CASIR's competency area manager for next-gen enterprises and institutions. Dr. Ntsibani also serves on the International Telecommunication Union's Multimedia Study Group, and also is a drafter of a lot of the study curriculum and supervision of programs in South Africa, Nigeria, and the US. Cool. Dr. Ntsibani, over to you.
That part. I want us to have a conversation, right? So I'm not in blockchain. So I'm not a practitioner in blockchain like Maurice has just told you. And I'm not a professor of blockchain like Prof sitting in front of us here. So what I want to do is just to get you to start thinking about certain things around the blockchain, right? So the first thing is, as I said, we're going to have a conversation, right? So in a conversation, you can ask me questions, and I can ask you questions. So to break the ice, I'll ask you the question first. So, and I'll tell you the story behind the question. So 2 weeks back, I was invited to talk to the parliamentary committee members on, public accounts. And the idea was, how do you use 4IR to make sure that their work, gets better? And I sort of thought, what is expected here? So in that case, I knew the people that I was going to talk to. In this case, I don't know. So I'm going to ask you the question so that I know who you are, right? In that case, I knew who were there. And I thought, do they want me to talk about blockchain? Or do they want me to talk about AI? I'm sure those words are there. But in fact, I made sure I didn't talk about them, right? Those ones, so that we can have a conversation about what technology is and why would you need technology. Because all I talked about was what you need to have before you even get to the technology issue. What is the kind of thought process that you need to go through if you're a public accounts committee to do that? Now, the question that came after that discussion, as we are now conversing, remember these people are members of parliament. So one will ask you, and it was African members of parliament, one will ask you, so can you come with me to my constituency and talk to the people? So if you were me, and a parliamentary committee member asks you to go to their constituency, to talk to the people in the village, and you want to tell them about blockchain, can I just have someone? I don't see someone who's singing it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So where you can establish a trust with people you don't know. Is that blockchain, or is that is just the issue of trust? So if I can say that when I was growing up, I'm not trying to reveal my age, but when I was growing up, there was no Facebook. But I had a friend that I was writing to. We used to call them pen pals. And this person I didn't know, but I had a trust with this trust relationship with this person. Was that blockchain? So there's a hand there. You want to tell us your thoughts about what blockchain is?
Afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I asked this question earlier on as I was doing the interviews with the speakers, because I feel like we are missing the point. If we want blockchain to go forward, then the youth should know what blockchain is. But then when they were asking for questions, the youth were not asking questions. It was people with glasses who know everything. So from the response I got from one of the speakers, if I had to go to the deep rural areas and talk to a grandmother about blockchain, in a nutshell, I'll tell her is being able to go to a car dealership and buying a car without the car dealership asking her how much she has in a pension fund, already, because they know already how much she has, but just by her providing an identity, because the system is interconnected, in a nutshell.
Okay. Great. So you see how difficult it is, right? So, and if I was in a class that has students that are learning about blockchain, I'll not be going around and beating about the circle like that. It will be quite easy, right? You go through it and they'll understand everything that you say. So when you are in a conference and you talk to the people that are in your area, you are talking to yourself, right? As a group of people that are, having a conversation about these things. But it's also quite difficult to make it work. And I'm saying this because it will come into why is it that in terms of the applications, we start to see less and less of, less than how much we talk about the particular subject. And I think for me, I thought about that question. I thought, okay, maybe I can go, but maybe I'm not going to say even a word about blockchain. I'm only going to focus on the digitalization, how you digitalize and which technology you use to be able to get there. It's for you to figure out. But what is important is how is it going to help you? So that ID situation is a very important one. That when I live here, if I check and find that I've left my wallet at home, and I've already driven, I'm here. Now I have to drive back to Pretoria, and my car doesn't have fuel, and there's a police, roadblock there. Should I now stop driving and finding ways to get home, or how should I do that? But if I can explain that, if I have a digitalized identity and it's connected to my payment network, just because I did remember my phone, it means I can do all of those things. I can pay for my petrol, and when the police stop me, I can ask them to scan my on my phone, my ID there, and they can verify that I have a driver's license. Right? So that's an important thing. Right? And it's very important to everyone to know that you can be able to do that. And it's easy for you to register for all the things that if it's social grants that you have to register for, you know that someone can verify the details that are there by just looking at that number, right? So I think it's quite important to understand why would it be that you would want to do this, a lot more than what technology is behind that. So what I will start is just to do a little bit of marketing first, to just let you know who I am. So I do represent C4IR South Africa, so that is the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is hosted at the CSIR. It's part of the centers that are globally, that are run by the World Economic Forum. So our center is one of the 13 that are independent centers that are owned by the countries, not by the World Economic Forum. So World Economic Forum has its own centers as well. So generally, we look at ourselves doing two things, just to support the development of the policies, and not just policies, but practices for building the core digital systems. Now, the core digital systems, for you to have online service, one of them we have just talked about it, you have to be able to verify the identity of the person that is transacting, to have the proper trust that has come through. You have to understand who they are. You have to be able to exchange data, right? And data exchange is critical, in a sense also that we talk about AI a lot, but you can't actually have a good AI system, particularly based on machine learning, if you don't have a diversity of data. So you need to have the diversity of data to reduce the unfairness that you can see in the AI systems, but also to support the accelerating of the uptake of these technologies. So how do you promote the trustworthiness in the technology? That's one of the things that we always grapple around, and that's what we are focusing on. So we have also been engaging the government to look at the incentives, right? Incentives for digital transformation, to stem the decline of the old sectors or stimulate new sectors. Now, the incentives are very important, and the professors will tell you that they will not want to lose a good student. A good student for a professor is gold, right? Because there are a lot of incentives if you have a good student. So you will not want to lose a good student as a professor. So incentives are good. So if we have incentives for people to digitally transform, then they will transform. Right? And the incentive will not just be because, because government says you should do it. So our role really is just three things. We bring people together to look at those areas where they are transformative. You convene, we've just had a conference of Digital Transformation Expo in September. So those are some of the things that we have. And on a monthly basis, we have talks, and Maurice was one of our speakers earlier this year. And we then catalyze by engaging in this kind of, event. So when I got invited, I thought, do I have enough time? But I thought, okay, I haven't engaged with this chair, so let me go there so that we can engage with the chair. Yeah. So, I'll just talk a little bit about this blockchain, but I won't really go deeper into the trends of blockchain. It's just to get you to think about certain things, right? And I'm sorry if these ones you have already heard them before, because I've just joined this afternoon. So before I start there, I want to just ask this question. In this room, okay, so this might be a dangerous thing to do. Who used internet before 1994? Before 1994. It's not an issue of elections. I can bet it's not about that, right? So it's just a coincidence that it's 1994. So the 1994, the reason I'm asking whether who used that is because 1994 is quite key in the development of the internet, of what we will sometimes call as a, third industrial revolution, because 1994 really saw the big commercialization of the internet. It doesn't mean that the internet was not there before. There were many people who were using it, and I'm one of those who were using the emails and other stuff on the internet, many other things before 1994, right? But 1994 meant you could do a lot more than you could ever do before that, right? So with the web browsers coming on board and everybody else now, businesses also establishing websites and all of that, and we have e-commerce and so on. So in the same case, you would have certain things that will happen, right? So with blockchain, it became commercial with a product, right? So who here heard of blockchain before they could hear of Bitcoin? So perhaps most people heard of Bitcoin first, right? And in fact, most people thought Bitcoin is blockchain, or still think Bitcoin is blockchain, right? So this is because these are sort of the twins, right? Blockchain came onto the being, just like with the web. Netscape was the thing at that particular time. We never even thought that you'll have other web browsers. But actually, who knows about Netscape? Except those who like to read history, or maybe those relics who were there before that. But Bitcoin remains the biggest, application of blockchain, even today, even though there has been many other blockchains beyond the Bitcoin since then. But it still remains the biggest user. And of course, the next big users are other cryptocurrencies. So beyond the cryptocurrency space, there's still not a lot. So you do have, and Maurice talked about this, you do have other features that are differentiating from Bitcoin. So Bitcoin won't give you things like the smart contracts, right? But there are a few other things that have come in, other blockchains that have come in, like smart contracts that enable better use. Now, if you are a computer scientist like me, smart contract is implemented as one of the basic things that you do when you do programming. You have to know all the rules. If this happens, this would happen. If this happens, this would happen. So it has to be pretty precise. So you actually need the lawyers to come and work with you in terms of the contract. What are the steps? So in a sense, for you to have an application in smart contracts, that is a big application, it has to be very specific. We have to know all the rules that are there, and where it becomes difficult to scale these things is that when you cross the border from South Africa to the next country, whichever one it is, you are probably going to encounter the first person that you encounter there. You will realize that the laws are different between the countries. Right? So because the laws are different, that means if you implement that smart contract, you will have to redo it every jurisdiction. And things can be quite complicated if you go to countries like US, where the states have different laws from one state. So you still don't even have a US law, you have many other laws in the country. So if you're going to implement that, that becomes a little bit difficult there. So in a sense, what do people say about blockchain? And I'm highlighting this slide because this is usually what sometimes causes issues with people blockchain. If you go to government officials and you talk about using blockchain, and they ask you about blockchain and just say that, okay, so the 3 goals which are normally talked about are that you are reducing or eliminating the need for a central authority. Who is the central authority here that you are talking to? You are talking to government. And government is one of those, right? And by the way, university is one of those central authorities, right? If you take the university, just take University of Johannesburg as an organization, right? So as a central authority there, would you want to reduce the need for it or for making certain decisions centrally? And we'll go to some of those in the next slide. I'll pick something that will apply here. Eliminate central point of failure and enable trust between those who don't know each other, right? So that we have had it already today. So the question is, how ready are we to let go of central authority? And I think I had Maurice mention this when I joined. The permissionless, and I think he talked about permissioned. Maybe he talked more about permissionless. So we're going to have permissionless blockchains. Bitcoin is one of those. So everything that you have seen on the previous slide applies very well there. When you talk about permissioned, there's some element of it, but you start now to have certain users. So now you have those that you trust. It's no longer everybody else that you trust. You allow certain ones to access that. So it's customized. You can customize it. You can say who sees this and so on. And who has the permission to write or not write. And of course, you have private databases and cloud, and those will never be replaced completely for a very long time. So they are still there. So they will remain. And these are the current organizations. They like that because you have a control. It's your system. And whether you are going to the cloud, they give you a space. You run your space. You have control. And on the other hand, you don't have any control. So central banks like the right there. But the question is this the middle? Is this where the sweet spots for blockchain would be, beyond what we have now in the cryptocurrency? I think this might be the area in the permissioned block where this is more acceptable to both sides. So with this, the next slide is more about our continuing search for a killer application. So as we said, for the web, a few of those who were in the academics were enjoying life on the internet by themselves. And all over the world, you could write to your colleagues and you were enjoying yourself within the academics, but you couldn't talk to your family using that, right? So it was just that. So that web, when it came in, it became a killer app that enabled many others that everybody now can use that, right? Who writes letters, by the way? Let me check. When was the last time you wrote a letter and posted it at the post office? You were very young when you last did that, right? No wonder the post office has run out of business. If it is business, and we have so many people that have not used it for the past 10 years, then how does it survive? So the killer app that we are looking at is not everything that can be on blockchain, right? And I think we need to just look at this. And PwC was looking at some of the things that are there. And I like how they put it. And you can find it, World Economic Forum has those and many others have those. But what it basically says is that you have to do a test. Are there multiple parties that are going to share data? If not, maybe you can use something else, right? But are there multiple parties that will be updating that data, right? Is there a requirement for verification? Are interaction time sensitive? Or will transaction by different users depend on each other, right? So we can think about this. And I think once you start to think about it and you say, what is the test? Can I tick and tick and tick and tick? And you find that you'll get to where you can find that. But of course, the question is, where do we focus? We have a school, we have a chair that focuses on skills, maybe developing on that infrastructure. The applications, are they in private sector? Are they in public sector? And there's a lot of focus on the public sector use, which I've picked here. This comes from OECD. They were looking at that. Identity is one of them. But I like where you are streamlining interagency processes, because this is where the problem is. And I'll pick one example of that from the public sector. So if you think about the housing, for instance, right? You have national government, you have provincial government, you have local government. All of those things, all of them are involved in getting you a social house, an RDP house. One person getting that asset, you have different levels in government. And of course, this might be a good application for that. And maybe I'm giving you a tip, Prof, that you should have some students look at this. So example of something that we are working on at the center with some private entities is around regulation, digitization of the regulation. And this is a new regulation that is not there, but we are beginning to engage for this to happen. It's basically to say, if last week the cabinet has approved commercialization of green hydrogen, who says it's green? How does hydrogen become green, right? And how can I know that it is really green? So we are looking at that value chain of production of hydrogen until it gets to the buyer, whether the buyer is overseas or is local, and they can have a verification that this is a green hydrogen, right? So looking at applying blockchain across all of that, and this ticks all the other points. So so really, with this, I want to almost wrap up the discussion. And I said I'm not going to give you big trends that this is what is happening there. I just want to provoke the conversation. And the point that I want to just come to here is, so what are the key challenges that are actually there? Why do we have this? Now, immutability is a good, characteristic of blockchain, but actually could pose a problem when updating is a regular occurrence. So if you regularly do that, because every time you do an update, it means you are spawning a new node. So you'll continuously keep spawning new nodes. And if it's in a permissionless blockchain where you have all the data, every node has access to everything. So you continuously keep spawning new nodes, and everybody else will have to get the copy of that. The storage, if it's large storage, large data items might not really be good for the blockchain, because then that means you have to have big data centers everywhere that are working on that. The other issue is about talking about this blockchain, this issue of delinking this with Bitcoin, because sometimes before you go anywhere, if you talk about blockchain and it gets linked to Bitcoin, people stop listening to whatever you're going to say, because they've had Bitcoin, and maybe they've had bad things about Bitcoin, or they don't like Bitcoin, right? Like central banks don't like Bitcoin, right? Maybe for a good reason, but maybe all banks don't like Bitcoin. to some extent, I was talking to banks at some point. They actually said, "No, we can talk about many things, but let's not talk about crypto." Right. So they don't, and I know that internally they don't talk about crypto, but they will not talk to you about crypto. For everybody else, they don't talk about crypto, but internally, when they are by themselves, they caucus about this. How are we going to defeat this thing? So that's the thing. The governance models are very important. So I'll leave you with a thought here. So we have many different blockchains. We still have a search for a killer applications beyond the crypto. And we still have the Bitcoins. And of course, this Dilbert story here tells you sometimes what will happen. Because the client wants to replace data center with blockchain. And the business development person says, yeah, sure, piece of cake. We can deliver that, right? So there's still that gap even within the organization that what is this blockchain? So you can just imagine if you have to go to a village and have to talk about blockchain. With this, I thought that would spark the conversation and maybe some thoughts about whether what you were thinking about as your application in blockchain, you have to think a little bit, is it really something that requires blockchain or it can be solved by other technologies? Thank you.
Very much. Any questions?
Maybe I asked too many questions. Don't be afraid. I'm done with my questions. I won't ask again.
That's our turn to ask questions. So, what are like the top 3 projects that the CSIR or the 4IR group are working on at the moment that relates to blockchain? So there are. The CSIR has 2 components, in a sense. There's a component which develops the technology, right? And there's part where I now work, where it's more where we look at uptake, and we are more on the engagement with the stakeholders to ensure that there's an uptake. So from the developer side, one of the applications that they had been working on now on the blockchain had been the digital identity one, right? So there is some work that they have done on the digital identity story. And part of that is in partnership with BankServe, using the platform that BankServe have put together there. So there's some development on top of that in terms of the cybersecurity elements in there. There's so I'm not too close to that, but I'm aware of that particular one. So there may be others that are applying around the manufacturing side. I know the manufacturing team is also looking at the use of blockchain in that sector that I'm not too close to. From the center where I am, where we are looking at more of policies and practices, again, the closest one is the digital identity one as well. Because, of course, the digital identity would be complex in a sense that you do need to have a bigger trust framework. So the governance model for that, it's a lot more complicated. When you have the moment you say identity, most people, the majority of people will think Home Affairs. But in fact, talking about digital identity, it's a lot bigger than just that particular element of a home affairs. So there are multiple players. Now, how do we get everybody else to trust each other around the identity of a person? So that's one of those. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay, Dr. Ntibisani, thank you so much. I think this was a very, very different session, and I really enjoyed the way that you made it conversational. And the questions you posed to us also made us realize that it's not about the technology, it's actually about the mindset. How do you explain it to somebody that doesn't know anything about technology? And it's all about the mindset. And to the scenario painted to your government officials, it's all about digitization and getting the mindset ready for digitization. So that was the other the interesting thing that came out. The other thing that you've mentioned, the sweet spot, public permission, we don't know, but that's the common trend, and what the delegates or the speakers this morning also mentioned about that. So thank you for that. And then in terms of the searching of the killer app, I think you're spot on. Not everything requires a blockchain, so it requires some sort of thinking, some sort of criteria before we all just go on this sort of run to use blockchain to solve every problem. And then obviously what you mentioned again is identity. Okay. And I think identity is a common theme again from this morning right till now, and I think there's going to be huge emphasis on identity, and I think we're going to have to get it right at some point. So again, thank you very much, and I really, really love this conversational approach, and it was good conversating with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I think we're on our tea break. Okay, I think we got from a 15-minute tea break, tea, coffee. So I think let's get some replenishments, and then we're going to basically delve into some real interactive, fun sessions after the tea break. And we'll be back at 3:15. Thank you. Cool. Okay, good afternoon again, and thanks for making it through the day. I think we are at the tail end, and to wrap up our session for today, we have an exciting session that's going to be filled with live demonstrations. So we're going to see things in action, and that's the good thing. Okay, and we're going to see the practical applications of blockchain. We're going to go through what is called the YOMA platform, and Lon's going to take us through. And then we're also going to see another element of the platform, how the platform works in an ecosystem. And then we're going to bring on Sean Mouton from EPSA. He's going to show how one platform can work with another platform by sharing our identity and verifiable claims. We heard of decentralized identity, and we heard about how identity is important. We're going to see what it means between identity and sharing of credentials within an ecosystem. So just briefly, just an introduction to Lohan. Lohan Spies is the founder and CEO of DEDX and is the chair of the Sovereign Steward Council. Lohan has also been a co-founder of many startups, okay? And his primary influence is to basically make startups thrive with a focus on identity, okay? He's a serial entrepreneur and a thought leader, okay? He's, like I said, he's the chair of the Sovereign Foundation and the Sovereign Network. He also represents or is an active participant member in the South African Financial Blockchain Consortium, the South African National Blockchain Alliance, the participant on the World Economic Forum Digital Identity Coalition, and also a primary driver behind the Banks of Digital Identity project, the Digital Identity, Decentralized Identity Foundation, and the Trust IP Foundation. Okay. And then obviously, in conjunction, there's Sean Mouton from EPSA. Sean is the Chief Technology Manager and the Head of Research and Development at EPSA. Sean has 32 years of experience, extensive knowledge in banking and payments, okay? And Sean also serves as the chairperson for the Financial Industry Standards Association and represents South Africa as the head of delegation at the International Standards Organization, the T68 body. Sean is also very important with digital identity and is also a primary driver behind the Banks of IMZA initiative. So Lohan, over to you.
Great. Good afternoon of DIDX. I basically spent the last 8 years of my life specifically focusing on decentralized identity. And what I'm going to show you today is just an overview of how you can utilize decentralized identity in a specific context. And the context that I'm going to discuss today is YOMA. So YOMA is basically a platform. The word YOMA comes from Youth Agency Marketplace. It's in collaboration with UNICEF, R Labs, Foundation Botnar, Goodwill, Generation Unlimited. The German government's a big funder of the YOMA project. And the whole objective of the YOMA project is to give youth across the world a decentralized identity and how they can leverage that identity to build up what we call a verifiable digital CV, and how that verifiable digital CV can then be utilized to apply for employment, where the employer can immediately verify the authenticity of the CV. So the whole objective here is really to uplift people from an African and a global community perspective, provide people with the necessary education, and then allowing them to take that education all the way into employment. So the three primary actors in this ecosystem, on the left-hand side, you have issuers of verifiable credentials. In the YOMA case, the issuers are either education providers, education providers, employment providers, or impact providers. So those are all people that will issue credentials to the youth. Then you have the youth in the middle. We call that Yo ID, or the youth identity. So all these credentials are issued to the youth that sits in the middle in a user-centric manner. And then the youth can then take the credentials inside their wallet and offload it to a verifier. It might be an employment partner, it might be different partners in the ecosystem, and they can then verify the authenticity from what the youth claim is actually true and factual. As you can see, there are a concept of DLT, decentralized ledger technology, or blockchain in the system. That is what we use to kind of establish decentralized trust across all the participants. But as a note, we never put any personal identifiable information on the ledger. And I think that's very important. You never want to put any sensitive information on any blockchain. So the YOMA marketplace is really for the youth to go into this platform and be able to discover different learning opportunities. We also have the concept of a reward system. We currently call it Zlato. And Zlato, we allocate on certain opportunities to the youth. So if you successfully complete an opportunity, You then are rewarded with Zlato, but because what we realize is in a lot of cases, the youth will actually use data to do an education opportunity, but then they don't have the money or the means to buy more data to do more. So we basically reward them, and then they can take those rewards to buy data, airtime. In South Africa, you can go and take those rewards and buy checkers. You can go and buy groceries, as example. We are going to implement a universal token into the system that is globally applicable. Basically, you can send it across borders, and then obviously you have your Yo ID component as well. So this is how the Yo ID looks. This is really about the identity of the youth and how all the credentials fit into this wallet, and then how they can share those credentials with players within the ecosystem. So I'm not going to do a live demo of Yoma. We recorded a demo because there's a lot of different parts and components in the system. But you are free to actually, if you want to. The Yoma system is live today. We have over 300,000 youth already registered on the platform. And the objective is at the end of this year, we are going to launch version 3 of Yoma, and that will be a fully interoperable SSI ecosystem where every single actor will have a decentralized identity. But you can go to www.yoma.world and you can go and register an account if you want to play with the system or the platform. All right, so if you can just show us the video, please.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this demo of Yoma. Yoma is an application of the blockchain using the blockchain for decentralized identity, which is a progression of digital identity which doesn't rely on a central party to store and manage a user's identity. So in the past, we would have gone to a website, we would have created an account, and they would have had an identity from us. Then they introduced IDPs like login with Google, where they store your identity for you. And decentralized identity, or SSI, is a concept which uses the blockchain to manage a person's identity and credentials. So the makeup of your data is stored on a decentralized wallet, which means that it doesn't mean one central party has got your data or anything like that. And what we've got here is a trust ecosystem, which uses the SSI framework, where Yoma plays the role of a governance authority, and they've established their trust framework using the Trust over IP Foundation. We've got issuers or opportunity providers who want to provide value for youth, who then issue the opportunities in the form of verifiable credentials to youth, and youth can take those and prove that they've done certain learning chain, and that schema defines what data is in the verifiable credential. So back onto the youth portal over here, give me a sec. We have the opportunities that will load up now. And we've got this course from DIDX called Blockchain Demo. So if I click on this, youth who come to this website connect with their SSI wallet and stay on this website, and this website issue the credential directly. But for the time being, while we're in the process of letting all of these various opportunity providers integrate the SSI functionality, we're using a manual verification process whereby youth upload their documents and the providers can view the document in this portal here. So I'm going to go ahead and upload my documents. Let's just say I've done this course, and the way that they confirmed that I had done this course is by giving me a document. I'm just looking for something off my desktop, and I found this little picture here. So I'm going to click upload certificate, and I'm going to drag in this little picture, and I'm going to say upload. So this is my proof that I've done this course. I click submit, and that gets shot through to the Yoma OP portal. So you can see here this UI has changed. It said I've submitted my certificate. I can cancel that, but I can also go to my profile now, and I can see that this has become a pending opportunity. Let me just refresh that quickly. And so a pending opportunity pretty much means it's awaiting approval. Within the OP portal, or the opportunity provider portal, you'll see that there's one verification pending. So just give this a moment. And I can go ahead and view this proof, which says, okay, fantastic. And I can approve it, and I can say, well done. You did an amazing job, and I approve. Back on the Yoma application, give me a second here. We've got this, okay, well, there we go. It's already marked as completed. So within that profile, you can see now it skips straight from the pending state to the completed because obviously I approved it here. But yeah, you can see here now within the completed opportunities that I have completed the skill of blockchain demo. And the blockchain demo skill included a skill called Adobe Presenter. And now, if I go into my profile as Yoma, these are all verifiable credentials in the background. So here's a blockchain demo, and in that verifiable credential, in the schema that created it, is a skill, and that skill is Adobe Presenter, which means now I've got an interoperable digital identity that has got a verifiable credential attached to it, which says that I have successfully completed the ability to present with Adobe. And I can do Agile project management because I've completed this course over here. Now, in the future, if I wanted to apply to a job, I can apply for a job and that employer can send me a proof request to say, does this person have these two skills? And the system will validate that I've done those skills without needing to view my data. So my data is completely private. It's in my wallet. No one can access it. But using a zero knowledge proof, the employers can actually validate that I've done that work without needing to look inside my wallet. So here we have this one single digital identity, which then I can, for example, take to another opportunity provider. So for example, let's say a Tingy here. I can go to this opportunity. It says you're now leaving Yoma. I can go to a Tingy, and when I get to a Tingy, I can continue. And I'm, let's just say 1999, and I can create my profile with a Tingy, which is pulling through my Yoma identity. This is just a stepping stone. In the future, what we'll have is a full SSI integration. This is just a stepping stone for the time being. But in the future, I'll be able to complete a course on this Atingi website without needing to go back to Yoma, and Atingi can say, you've done this, congratulations, and they can issue me a verifiable credential into my wallet, which removes
verifiable data and verifiable skills. Employers can go and say, I'm looking for these skills. The youth can then verify that they actually have those skills to do the job that that the employer is requesting. But even more importantly, if you look at the login with YoID or login with Yoma, the user take that one identity and can roam across the whole ecosystem without creating another account, without creating another password. It's one identity across the whole ecosystem. So the Yoma project is ongoing, and our objective is to reach millions and millions of youth in the coming years.
Cool, man. Impressive. Thanks, Loan. So what's also impressive is that Yoma is out there and 3,000 users that scale. So well done to you, Loan. I think now we'll have Sean to basically come and show us an extension of the identity initiative to show what EPSA is doing in terms of identity and how it will work with EPSA and with the Yoma platform. Over to you, Sean.
So while technology is trying to sort itself out, just a few notes around, let's call it this thing called blockchain, that we're going on about the whole day today. And when we were talking around why is AI so mainstream, the only reason AI became mainstream was because of, there we are, because of an app itself. What's behind AI is what we used to know as machine learning. It wasn't that sexy, was it? Machine learning, you know. AI became, and guess what? In about another 5 years, AI is going to be called something else, because as it moves on. If you have a look at Google Maps, what does Google Maps do? It shows you how to get from point A to point B. Whether you're flying, whether you're going with a boat, whether you're going with a train, or whether you're going with a car. At the end of the day, that's AI. And we use it every day. We just didn't actually take that into the back of our minds. The only thing that made AI become something was ChatGPT, because of what the app delivered to the broader population, not to people that travel. Because who would use Google Maps? Only people that traveled. So they would understand the concepts, because I mean it takes into account live accidents if you're driving on the M1. That is part of what AI does. It takes data, combines it, updates the whole time. If you take ChatGPT, all it does was took a whole host of library of information. Instead of Google giving you 50 options, it consolidated into one option. And that's what we accepted. Now, blockchain's the same thing. People out there, the normal public, I think we made mention of the grandmother in some rural area. To her, it's about the application itself. It's not about what blockchain is. It's about what she gets out of it at the end of the day. It's what value add she gets out of it. Yes, you will see now we're going to add, see how blockchain adds value. But guess what, guys? 99% of the population out there is not going to know blockchain is in the background. And 99% of the population out there actually doesn't care. So it is a lonely world. Okay, a very lonely world, trust me. To me, blockchain is a legacy. It's no more new technology. It's evolved, blockchain, DLT, blockchain. There's an icon doing the rounds that blockchain is not a DLT, DLT is not a blockchain. But those names are going to change. It's about the underlying technology and the capabilities it gives us, and that's what we're going to be demoing here. So we've been talking about digital identity or verifiable credentials. The mention of having a digitized version of my identity. This is not about issuing of identity. It's about using what the issuers have, so in other words, the source of trust, Department of Home Affairs, proof of bank account, proof of employment, proof of varsity degree, and how we actually store those things securely, non-tamperable, and how you can share it in the new digital world. That's what this is about. So I'm going to try this live demo here in how we, if it doesn't work, I've recorded it, don't worry. Then I can play the recording. So this is now actually me going to create what we refer to as a cornerstone credential within the ecosystem. Typical, let's provide a, see now I need my glasses. I must remember what my mobile number is. As to us creating it within the wallet itself, and as, so guys, don't memorize this number, it is false. See, now I can't even remember it. It's an ID number. So this is typically your ID number that you know is your ID number. Then what we do is to make sure I'm alive. So it doesn't help we have the same process as what we have with documents. Let me continue here while I'm talking. Is to make sure that when I onboard onto the ecosystem, I need to make sure I'm alive. So we'll go through what we refer to as a liveliness test. And the reason for using that app itself is because I don't like taking selfies. And if the majority of you were going to take selfies, it was, is my hair right? It doesn't work that way. So hence that type of app. So to remove all of those problems in the ecosystem itself. So now here's my credentials. So this is a digitized, verified set of credentials as issued by the Department of Home Affairs. So now if the traffic cop stops me, I can use these credentials and the QR code, and he can scan it. Oh, this guy has a driver's license. Or we can connect to whoever issues driver's licenses and have that credential loaded into my wallet, so that that interaction can be disconnected. And all this information is actually stored on one device. It is not stored in the cloud. It's not stored on a blockchain. No, but because it's my data. It doesn't belong to anybody else but myself. So now in that context, now I want to, so these are just use cases that we are kind of demoing, because we're in a bank, so now I want to open a bank account. This could be, and Loanne will show how using this app in a different ecosystem, that interoperability of credentials itself. So let's hope our network is quick, and this is using the Varsity's network. Sorry. Let me just refresh there. Okay. And it's made simple, guys. So typically today we all know how to scan QR codes, right? It's not rocket science. We could have made it a lot more difficult and displayed a 10-digit code there and asked somebody to retype it. But this has now created a secure connection. I've been asked to share the following information. So this is typically the information you would need to open a bank account. I would click share. It would then share it with the bank in a secure method. The information in itself is then verified in the back end. This was issued by the Department of Home Affairs, so there's a lot of work taking. Oh, it failed. See? Let's try again. No, see. So let me go to the recording. That's why we have recordings. It is allowing me to create a connection to the organization, whether it's a bank, whether it's a varsity. So for example, if the varsity wanted to issue proof of degrees, it could allow the student to log on, display a QR code, the student could scan the QR code, and he would automatically get the credentials if the credentials belong to him. And that's why the cornerstone credential is so important. We need to make sure that you are who you are when you have created the actual app itself. Hence the liveliness test, hence the facial matching, to make sure you match with what is registered at the Department of Home Affairs. So it won't work in the context of, if we have a look in today's world where people steal ID books, they spoof, they scan, make copies, now they're you. You can't actually do this because you can't steal your face. Somebody can't actually steal your face. Okay, it belongs to you, it doesn't belong to anybody else. It is unique, got unique characteristics, but somebody can steal a piece of paper, take their photo and stick it on, scan it, and it then looks like you. In this context, in a digitized context, it becomes a lot more difficult to do. Okay, so let me just play the video. You will see in this context, this is very similar to what I want to do demo now live, but the demo guards have gotten to us and said no. So I'll scan the QR code. I will share my credentials. The credentials then are automatically populated into the application itself. I'm not typing anything. You'll see there on the left side, it's all populated. Now I scan a QR code. Now the bank is giving me a credential. So in the first QR code I scanned, I gave the bank data. In the second QR code I scanned, the bank gave me data. It's simple process. So it's not because I'm giving data or receiving data, the process needs to differ. And that's where the concepts of what is usable to the individual out there. It's not about the blockchain. The blockchain is what we techies in the background will foam at the mouth about because of the security, the cryptographics, and all of those type of things that make it secure. But the individual sitting at home actually doesn't matter about it. You could use this for voting because now it's been issued. It's secure. When you vote, I can't vote on behalf of my wife because the credentials are not my wife. I can only vote about myself. Okay, so when casting votes and those type of things, when opening bank accounts, I can't now open a bank account in your name because my face doesn't belong to your name anymore. So those type of things, it brings a different realm to the way we live within society. Yes, there's a lot of criminals that are not going to like it. Yes, there's conspiracy theorists that say now the government has my ticket and all of that type of stuff. But guess what, guys? It's life. We want security, we want privacy, but we also don't want nobody to know about us. So it's a bit of a conflict in the mind, and you need to adjust. This is not about the government knowing about you. He already knows about you. Guess what? You registered when you were born. Okay, you got an identity. He knows about you. This is to assist you in a process, to make your life easier. And this is what I'm referring to when I'm saying appropriate applications. The reason people do not know about blockchain is because they know about stablecoin. They know about, I'm not going to say Bitcoin. They know about, let's call it when it gets to digital identity. They know about EIDAS in Europe. The exact same concept is going through. So these are the new products or greenfield products that a technology like blockchain gives us the capability to enable. Prior to blockchain, prior to the cryptographics, prior to all of those things, to be able to do something like this and keep it secure and to make sure people are not doing what they're not meant to be doing with it, where it's stored in a database and people can amend it and all of that type of stuff. This simplifies that picture. Okay, that's what blockchain brings to the picture. Have a look at its underlying capabilities and the strengths it brings to a product. And the product is not always about money. Okay, I've demonstrated you a product built on blockchain that has nothing to do with money. But it does provide us as a community a better way of doing things and identifying yourself in a digitized space. Okay, so this exact same app, I'm going to have Loan Connect now. So he's using the app that I used, that he had no knowledge of building, and he's actually now going to connect into his ecosystem. The prime thing about the blockchain world or DRT world is interoperability. If we do not get interoperability, we are islands. And if we are islands, we can't work together. I think somebody earlier mentioned this thing about the cross-border ecosystem. We can't dictate which blockchains who uses, or which country uses what blockchain, or which company uses what blockchain. What we can dictate is the standards on interoperability and bringing in trust between the ecosystems. And this is what Loan's going to demo you. So I'm going to disconnect and you're going to connect. Okay. It's on the flowers. No, not at all. No, so YOMA is part of, let's call it that SSI ecosystem, and this is where interoperability talks to interoperability. They can be on different ledgers. They don't need to be on the same ledger. But the interoperability and the standards make us work together. Gives us the capability of sharing and trusting each other. On top of that, you mentioned the trust framework. That's where, who do we allow into the ecosystem? So you don't allow the mom and pop shop to issue identity, right? Because he's not the authoritative source, the DHA is. You don't allow the varsity to issue bank accounts because they are not the trusted authority. Banks are. Oh, I thought everybody could hear me now. So if you look at degrees, I don't allow the bank to issue degrees because they're not the trusted authority. And all of these ecosystems can run on different ledgers, but we have standards on interoperability and we have a trust framework to allow in and who not to allow in. And guys, people are going to get into the ecosystem. They weren't meant to be there in the first place, but we're not going to know that on day one. We're only going to know that when they show their true color. The ecosystem allows you then to auto-revoke those credentials that were issued by the incorrect player. Okay. So that's part of creating this ecosystem.
So within that ecosystem, in ABSA's, so ABSA can onboard different credential providers?
Correct.
So ABSA will have to be one that makes that determination?
The trust framework. So the trust framework looks after the ecosystem. ABSA doesn't own the trust framework. ABSA works within the trust framework. Whether the trust framework is managed by somebody like Sabric or somebody like BankServe, to me at the end of the day, somebody needs to manage it, and there's a process of onboarding people. ABSA gets onboarded into the trust framework to issue credentials, and ABSA is onboarded into the trust framework to verify credentials. Very similar to UJ. UJ will be an issuer, and UJ can be a verifier due to the fact that you register new students. So I need to verify that I'm working with the right individual. So very similar to what I did with a bank account. When the student logs on to register for the first time, there can be a QR code, share identity, and all of that type of stuff. So then UJ is onboarded. Okay.
Can you maybe just share my screen? So you can see my app here. I'm going to move it all around all the time because otherwise it will lock. So if it moves, it's just to keep it displaying on that side. It's quite small, but you can kind of see what's going on more or less. All right, so on the left-hand side, we have the equivalent of what this ABSA app is, but in the cloud, not on the mobile, okay? And this is basically exactly the same stack as what we are using for YOMA, meaning all the stuff we do in YOMA is fully interoperable with this wallet. So ABSA can actually go and ask my CV from the youth, and from the CV they can give them a student loan account, as example. So first of all, I just want to give you a concept of the trust registry. So this is our trust registry that we created and what our ecosystem, obviously this is a test ecosystem, a test trust registry. But you'll see these are all the entries currently in the trust ecosystem and what role they fulfill. Are they issuer, a verifier, or both? If you are not in this trust ecosystem, you cannot issue or verify from or to someone that is outside the ecosystem. It's just to kind of bootstrap trust. And if you click on these, you'll see that the QR code will change, and that basically means you can click on these and make a connection with a wallet to one of these. We also control the schemas. So what schemas are we allowed to issue within this ecosystem? Again, we have a lot of test schemas in here. This is our testing platform. But to give you an idea, that's a proof of a bank account, and that's kind of what the information might look like. Or this is a learning opportunity in the YOMA case, and this is the information that we will actually create to issue a verifiable credential. So that's the kind of trust registry. And that is where the governance comes in. And from Sean and my perspective, we are providing the tech. We have one because we have a complete ecosystem, but in future banks, if someone will facilitate and provide the governance. Then on the holder side, this holder wallet is exactly the equivalent of this. The only difference is it's not in my hand, it's in the cloud. But I can access it either via a mobile app or from a web interface. And what's important, the reason why we did this is because we want to include everyone, and we can even allow someone to access this wallet via SMS, via USSD, to make sure that we are as inclusive as we possibly can be. So contents of a wallet contains the IDs, a wallet will contain credentials. So the credential that you see here, if I open that credential on my wallet, that credential is effectively the same thing as one of the credentials on the left-hand side. Sean made the comment of connections. So every time that you issue or verify a credential between two people, you basically make a connection. It's an end-to-end encrypted channel, peer-to-peer. There's nobody in the middle of that channel, which is highly important because you know if you move information from party A to party B, only party B can access and decrypt that information. That's one of the things that makes SSI so secure. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to issue a credential from a complete different SSI stack. It's got nothing to do with this app, but we are interoperable because we work according to the same standards and specifications. So I'm going to issue a mobile number credential. So I'm going to scan this QR code on the left-hand side. You'll see here the state changes as the connection gets established. I'm going to just type in. I need to move so I'm just going to type in random data, right? This is obviously now not what you will type in if it's a real world use case. I click submit. Now we issue a credential from our side. You can see it comes up on the mobile device. I can add this credential into my wallet. And now we showed how we can issue from our side into the ABSA app. And now we're going to show you the reverse, how we can verify a credential that sits in the ABSA app into our capability. So if I go to the verifier portal, one thing that's important that I'm going to show you now is we call it a compound credential or compound verification. What does that mean? A compound verification means I can take multiple of these credentials. So you can see I have my digital identity credential, I have my proof of bank account credential, and many others in this wallet. What I'm now going to ask, I'm going to ask one question to this wallet, but from multiple credentials at the same time, okay? So I'm basically going to ask a question where I want information from this digital ID credential, the proof of bank account credential, and from the mobile number credential in one request, okay? And we call that compound verification. So again, I'm going to scan this code. Again, on this left-hand side, we just show you all the state changes. And you can see what I'm asking now is all this information from 3 different credentials in one go. 3 different issuers, potentially. It can be completely different issuers. I can combine it, and cryptographically, the verifier can still prove the authenticity. So if I click here on share credentials, it will now move to our side. And here you can see all the information coming back from the credentials, and important, you can look at the bottom, verified through. If any of these credential information was tampered with or changed or anything, that verification would have been false. And the subsequent check that you can also add here is, like Sean mentioned, revocation. Is anyone's, for instance, is my Home Affairs credential that ABSA issued subsequently revoked? And if the answer is yes, then I can say, well, that credential is revoked. I'm not going to trust you. Go and renew it or rectify it and then come back to me. And yeah, this is interoperability with 2 complete different stacks according to the same specifications and standards.
All I can say, impressive, and this is real. It's no more pipe dream. This is real.
This is real.
Cool. I just want to mention also, Sean, Lohan, Anushka, we talked about decentralized identity. We talked about the IMZA. Sean, Lohan, and Anushka are the pioneers behind IMZA. So you're getting real-world insights from people that are shaping the decentralized identity landscape in South Africa. Cool. Just want to check, any questions in terms of the demo? Yeah.
No, it's fine. So yeah, well done. It's really good to see the demo for the first time since our demo a few years ago. So it's good to see the interoperability that you've got done now. It's a huge milestone for us. So my question is for you, Sean. How are you implementing SSI on top of your regulated products in the bank? Or if you're not yet implementing it, how are you thinking of implementing this on top of your regulated products?
So very similar to the way we would do it today. So in today's context, if somebody wants to open a bank account, right? They would have to give a copy of an ID. They would have to give, for example, proof of resident, and those are all paper-based, or it's a scanned copy. This is no different. This is just digitizing the same thing. So we're not looking to change any regulations. We are just moving into a more secure ecosystem so that we can exchange data. It brings in a lot more automation in the context of somebody not having to sit in the back end and verify the data. It becomes a lot more difficult, especially from an ID perspective for the data. So the current concept of application fraud becomes lesser of a problem. Identity theft becomes lesser of a problem due to the fact that, in all intents and purposes, in this type of ecosystem, somebody can't steal your face. The reason for the liveliness test, and that's also newer technology that has evolved since around 2018, became a lot more stringent because of COVID, in context of identifying and making use of the light around you. Some of these liveliness tests ask you to blink, to move right, to move left. This one uses the light, the shadows, and all of that type of stuff to prove. It also assists in making sure it's not a deep fake, it's not a photo, it's, you know, where somebody's holding up a photo in front of a camera or in front of your iPhone itself or the phone itself. So all of that then makes that process a lot more secure.
Okay. Afternoon. Amazing presentation. It reminds me of me presenting an idea for a hackathon. With that mindset, I want to ask, what's the value proposition for your technology? Why would somebody want to pay to use this kind of technology? That's the first question. You mentioned hand-to-hand encrypted. That's good, but then remember, it's South Africa. I can walk out and they steal my phone, which means they'll be able to access the information from the phone.
It's just two parts. One being when you interact, we just showed straightforward use cases where we're actually just sharing data with each other. Part of that workflow, you can do a re-facial identification. So if he steals your phone and he tries to apply for a bank account in your name, so now you've got another bank account in your name. When he goes into the branch to actually pick up the credit card, they're kind of going to, but you're not the same person. So that whole concept of identity theft, so in today's world, when they steal your wallet, they've got your ID book, they've got your driver's license, they can kind of scheme on that. In the digitized world, it becomes a lot more difficult, especially with your face tied to the ecosystem. Why people would pay for it? So if we have a look at the greater ecosystem, the people downloading the app, adding their credentials, at a high level, we don't see them being charged to use the app, not to pay for the app. It's more about the value add you give to the verifiers. So what value do they see in using the secure credentials from a verifiable perspective? versus then going through a manual procedure of having somebody in the back end checking an ID, making sure. How do they do it? They don't have access to the DHA information. They accept it on face value. What is the cost of removing that application fraud? So there's a whole host of those value adds for the users of the credentials rather than the person adding the credentials.
Okay, last question. You mentioned deepfake. I mean, AI is evolving every day. So how are you guys making sure that as AI is evolving, you are also researching or implementing new system of authentication? Because I promise you, in 5 years or even less, there will be an AI which can replicate your face exactly as it is.
So, I mean, that's why you leave that type of work to the professionals. I'm not saying we're not professionals, but there are specialized third parties out there that actually, this is their bread and butter. So if you go and look at a company called iProve, for example, they actually, to assist them with this whole AI problem, they actually have bounties where if you, as an individual, can spoof and get past their AI, they actually pay you a bounty. So they actually pay people to try and short-circuit the system from a bounty perspective. So hence why I'm saying the solution in itself is not just blockchain. It's a combination of different things. So blockchain for what it is good at. Liveliness, you would select the appropriate solution or build your own, just depending on your internal capabilities. But you would go down that road. I always joke about we use AI to create fake news, but we also want to use AI to pick up fake news. So there's a bit of a personality clash within AI from that perspective. So yes, I totally agree with you. Hence why I'm saying when we started in 2018, these liveliness tools were not as brilliant as what they were today. And then towards middle 2020, this whole deep fake thing came about. These apps had to adapt because that was part of their bread and butter. Remember, as soon as they then start failing, people start utilizing them. Okay?
Thank you.
I just want to add one comment. So one of the use cases that people are looking at applying this concept of decentralized identity is to mitigate deepfakes. Because you can effectively attest to the fact that that is physically you on the picture or on the video because you can sign it and other people can verify it. So we're definitely on a journey. Like Sean said, there will be third parties that will need to go and figure it out. But this technology is applicable in a myriad of different use cases, of which deepfakes are definitely one of them. So if you want to go and hack more, that's a good place to go and hack.
All right, thanks. I'll also echo the sentiments there that it's great to see the application working. I've been in the presentations when it was conceptualized. Now it's good to see it, in that space. But what I wanted to just highlight, perhaps maybe as a comment, one, and then maybe a question, is that you would find that, and I suppose you are able to use the online verification from Home Affairs to get the cornerstone credentials, which is already an available process, so you can actually build applications based on that is currently available. There are certain other applications that will obviously require other people to come on board, like the Department of Transport, for instance, to then enable the driver's license to also be a digital one so that it can actually work with the whole system. But what would be the well, I'll use the term killer app again, that you could see now without any change in the current laws or regulations that is available when you say you now go live. And I'm not also talking about from money-making perspective, like my colleague here. It's more about the value, any valuable application that we can see as a killer app for something like this.
So if you have a look at individuals in today's world, when you interact with any organization, when you apply for a loan, what would you as an individual rather do? Have an app like this to share that data, or go through the process of making copies, scanning, creating PDFs, sending it through? So it's about, it's about that ease of use into the ecosystem. So we're not looking to boil the ocean here. There is a merit of, let's call it, adoptions that need to take place. So if you start the process, it's not about what regulations need to change. It's about how do you simplify, because people are going to accept the app if it simplifies their life. Will there be one single digital identity app in the ecosystem? I don't think so. I think there will be multiples. And each app in itself will add value to the individual. Whether it is an individual getting rewards because he has credentials in his wallet and he's sharing his credentials and getting rewarded in that context, or whether this app provides me proof of bank account and this app doesn't, that only time will tell. But you are going to see more than one. There is not going to be a single one. Our task from an industry perspective is to make sure that all those apps come into a trusted ecosystem, and when the individual downloads it, that trust is there from day one. Because as soon as the trust is broken, you saw that happening with Bitcoin. As soon as the trust is broken, what happens? Everybody runs. It's now in a cycle of rebuilding the trust, which is now very much of 12 years later, but it's still trying to rebuild it. And that is the important part, is about getting the trust in there from day one.
Yeah, I think just to kind of also look at what use cases you can unlock with this technology without kind of stumbling into potential regulatory hurdles. I think the first one is authentication, removing usernames and passwords. I think that's a massive use case. This technology enables it out of the box. You don't have to go and remember all the usernames and passwords. If they hack the database, they actually don't get a password. The password physically sits on your phone. They don't even know what your password is. That's a low-hanging fruit use case. Internal use cases, like if you issue employee badges to your employees for access control, things where you control the ecosystem. And there are a lot of them, concert tickets, Airbnb. There are so many different use cases that you can apply this technology to. We are really today mainly discussing about human identity in a ecosystem. But this is also not only for humans. This technology is equally powerful on machines. If you think about IoT devices, emitting verifiable data to the cloud. So yeah, if you really start looking at this technology, you can apply it in so many places that I always call it, you basically have a Swiss Army knife. What are you going to do with it? Are you first going to cut a piece of bread? Are you going to try and cut down a tree? Are you going to try and cut a piece of paper? There are so many options that you need to choose one. Yeah.
Cool. Any more questions?
Thank you so much for your presentations. I was talking to my colleague here about your application at ABSA, which somehow helps to solve that issue of people logging to your account, so there's that element which is quite good. But again, when you look at it from the South African point of view, I can use a typical example of lately when they hijack you, they don't just hijack you, they hijack you and kidnap you at the same time. And I'm saying this because, I'm just giving that context so that you understand that then there's someone, now instead of just taking the phone and transferring the money, but they also go with you so that they can use your face until they take out the money until it's finished. Which now they don't just, even when they get to that point, they don't just send it straight into a specific account, but it will be through e-wallet, for example. So that'll be a bit difficult to trace. So since now you say it's the face, which is good, great. And then you see that, okay, this is the person. And then what if now someone is just underkept? If someone is just kept there and they say, just show us present your face so that we can see the money. So I'm interested, that's what we're talking about. Is it possible, maybe we're just living in our own planet, where we can possibly maybe on the same application, since it uses also your facial recognition, where it can actually detect that you're a bit tense. So it means something might be possibly wrong. Is it something that maybe you were thinking about to see, it can easily detect that maybe something is not okay, maybe we should just check a bit further. If you're like this and then the money moves to e-wallet, possibly something might be wrong. Is it something you are willing to think about? Or, because we're asking, because if we can check body language, possibly maybe with the face we can actually do something to address that problem.
That comes out in what we refer to as face matching or facial recognition. We might have a challenge for those that sit on the toilet and do banking if we use that context, so not in that context, but yes. For those that want to go and play and have access to AWS, there's a face rec tool that actually does that. It actually provides you back with certain AI percentages on, this person looks stressed, this person looks happy. So it actually reads your facial expressions. What we at the end do with that information is something that needs to be unpacked. But yes, the actual tools in themselves, depending on which one you work with, actually does supply that information. It does look at the facial expressions, says, this guy does look stressed, or this guy's in distress, or he's sad, but then it is, what do we, from a ecosystem, do with the information? So, that then becomes the difficult part. So yes, the data is there because there is a certain context of AI that has been applied to it. So those that want to go and play, AWS does have a nice tool called FaceRec, and you can actually pull different faces. I don't know how you're going to make yourself look distressed, but try. And then you can actually have a look at the actual technology itself from that perspective. But yes, it does.
I would like to go back to his question, which was a very good one, on the value proposition of the presentation, which I will expand to say, what is the value proposition of the blockchain, even including this DID, digital identity, which we are having here. There are two instances from my side. The first one is a very short story, which is a true story. This Uber driver who gave me a lift, he was very frustrated, and he told me the problem. He said he retired as a teacher, but discovered he got a call from SAPS that someone was using his degree. And then they asked him questions and so forth. And then he went back to the school where he last taught. And what did he discover? He discovered that it was his friend who stole his degrees. And now his friend has been working there as a teacher, using his degree without his knowledge. And now he went to the principal, and to be shocked even more to discover that his friend was actually assisted by the principal. And then worse, and the principal talked to him to say, don't worry, I know I'm connected here. We are going to sort it out. So he was saying, what should I do now? Here is a connected, centralized principal who assisted a friend to steal a friend's degree in a complicated situation like this. So with this short incident, it's a true story, my answer is definitely I would rather part with money and have my digital IDs in that way and save myself from a situation like this, whereby even after discovering a problem, I can't solve it. And I asked him, was he stopped from teaching? He said, no, he's still teaching. Because they are still investigating. But the truth himself, they asked him, did you allow anyone to use your degree? He said, no, I never did that. Then I said, then why did they not arrest him at that spot? He said it's very complicated, but the principal is connected. So where we are is we have problems of theft, fraud, which our current Web 2 technologies have failed to solve. That is why when we are on Web 3 comes with the solution of this. And of course, blockchain will come with its own problems, which we have to solve. The second answer is we are moving into IoT, Internet of Things, where devices are connected and through AI are interacting like human beings. Each device, take it like an entity or a person on the digital world, in a day can interact with million robots on transactions that are so complicated. But these Internet of Things devices need to identify each other to each other in a verified and trustless manner. This is the technology for that. That answers the question, what is the value proposition behind this technology? Thank you.
Thanks, Bernard. Very, very interesting, and you're highlighting real-world problems, and you're also associating it to the technology and exactly what the technology will solve. So again, it's all about trust, and that's what we need to solve for. Okay, cool. Okay, let's do one last question. Hey? Okay, I've got the mic. Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. It was quite an interesting one. My question is this. On a broader perspective, where does this stand with the law in terms of compliance with the law? Or perhaps on a broader perspective, digital identity, where does it stand with the law? Because when you look at the whole concept of digital identity, perhaps you could say, okay, it falls under the Personal Information Act, or okay, it falls under the Electronic Communication and Transaction Act. But when you go further into what digital identity is providing, you still see some gray areas that this act does not cover. So that is my first question. My second question, if it is not fully compliance with the law, and we know the various arms of government, the process it takes to pass the law, will we say that it's not yet fully ready? Thank you.
So the quick answer is it's compliant. So in today's world, when you go to the police station or commission of oath to verify, to get a certified copy of your ID book, or to get a certified copy of a document, that is accepted in the law today. This is no different. I'm getting a set of data issued by the authoritative source, being Department of Home Affairs when it's your identity, and I'm sharing it electronically, the way we do today. So today, how would you log on to a APSA site, as an example, or Standard Bank or whoever, and what would you do? You would actually type all your information in, correct? And you would hit submit. And you would send them a certified copy of your ID document. All we're doing now is completing the form automatically. You're giving consent due to the fact that you are actually saying, I want to share this data. So you as an individual have the option to say no or yes. So you're giving consent, which is compliant with the law, if we look at the POPI Act. So all of those components are actually covered. Where we start acting against the law is when we start wanting to issue an identity to a South African. That is only and solely allowed to be done by the Department of Home Affairs. That's when you start contradicting. And that is not what we are about. We're about creating a trusted ecosystem for the trusted sources to issue credentials, for those credentials to become tamper-proof, and for you to be able to securely share them with valid use cases. So, and what I mean by that is if we take the mom and pop shop, that he doesn't ask you for your proof of income when you are trying to buy a liter of milk. That is an inappropriate use of your data. So part of this is also to simplify and to enable the POPI Act in the use of your data in context of you giving consent to share it, and making sure that the person asking for the data is asking for the correct data in context of what he must use it for. So this is purely about that enablement. We haven't come across any of, so we're not looking to replace digital signatures. This just provides you a secure method in sharing digital signatures. We're not looking at replacing it. If you talk about the Communication Act, if you talk about the POPI Act, everything we are doing is enabling that POPI Act. Okay.
That's it with the questions, and thank you, Lohan, thank you, Sean, and thanks for all the detailed insights. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, it brings us to the end of today. I don't know about you guys, but I actually want this day to carry on. Yeah, I mean, the discussions are amazing. I told you I'm not an influencer, but I will introduce you to people who are influencing the blockchain landscape, and I didn't, I didn't disappoint, and yeah, so cool. So I think just in closing, I think it's very important that we just recap the day. The day was started by Professor Namamdi giving us an introduction and what's the objectives, what's the expectations. Then Anushka basically took us on a journey where she asked us to reimagine what Africa would look like and what a dream it was, okay? And she showed us some of the tools and some of the exciting technologies that can be there to improve our lives, and she gave us a roadmap and a path to navigate forward. So I think let's take that and let's keep it in the back of our minds, because that's how we're going to have a better Africa. Then we had our keynote discussions, okay? And this was a what's and all experience, bullet holes, everything session. And I think the key thing that the panel tried to address is why is blockchain taking so long, okay? And they've highlighted from a financial industry perspective,
that there's regulatory challenges, there's infrastructure challenges, and also there's a level of perception and awareness and education that needs to be happening with our general end user population. And then we had Caroline, okay. Caroline made whatever Anushka said real. She blew our minds away. But what was interesting was approach, okay. She took a very different approach and didn't start in mainstream industry or mainstream corporate. She started at schools, at groundroots level, solving challenges that schools face, communities faced, okay. And that's how she built her AIR solution, okay. And what was impressive was how easy it was. I'm not saying easy as in like, easy to do, but how easy was it to get people to develop a solution. Just soda and pizzas, getting school students to develop this for her, and in 8 hours. So that was actually amazing. What was also amazing is that she talked about the certification program. And this is something, if we really look at it on a different level, is every time we aspire to certify ourselves against international standards, all from the US, from the EU, and who knows, maybe even in the Far Eastern Asian countries. But here, if we're doing something, can we not take that certification, an African certification, and export it to the rest of the world? I think that's a different mindset. And even that platform that she has, can we not connect with her, take that platform, package it, and use it in South Africa, and even export it to other parts of the world? So I think that was very, very impressive. After that, we basically also had some regulatory and legal insights, okay, from Maurice. I think his message was clear: keep the narrative simple. You're going to explain it to lawyers, to judges, whatever. Keep it simple. There's also doing some impressive things in terms of building the entire platform for tokenization. And what also stood out is he basically showed us how we can basically do what we want to do with blockchain in conjunction with the legal framework, all in a line to what the framework already has, and we're in a unique position in South Africa to use that because the legislation or the regulatory framework has that, and we can just build on top of it without breaking the law. So that was very, very impressive. And then we had a very conversational discussion with Dr. Mseng that was really good, subtle. For me, what hit home was that it's all about the digital mindset, okay? And we need to understand also how we communicate in simple terms. Second, what also was highlighted is that we often have to go back to the past to understand what the past was like so we can see where trends are going. You talked about the 1994 sort of question in terms of who used the internet before 1994, but you then highlighted that 1994 was key because of the commercialization. And that's important because we're gonna, it's a sort of, what can I say, analogy to where we probably are with blockchain today, okay? And then he also mentioned the Bitcoin example, in the sense that we all knew about Bitcoin first before we knew about blockchain. So that also tells us that we need to understand certain key events that happened in the past that's going to shape our future. So that was something interesting also. And then we had a fun session where we saw real-world implementations demoed to us live. Okay, so Lohan showed us that youth portal. It was impressive because that's going to make a big difference for youth in South Africa in terms of storing the credentials and getting jobs and the marketplace they have for education. And then Sean showed us what's happening in the banking space, in the real world banking space in terms of what ABSA is doing. And we talked about lots of decentralized identity. Sean actually showed what an implementation of decentralized identity actually is, where he did the face scan, where he basically went all the way to the Home Affairs, got it validated, and you had his identity credential on his mobile app. Okay. Then we took it to another level. We took it to see how can an identity created by ABSA, stored in the ABSA app, be used on another platform where we basically shared that identity claim to sort of the DIDEX portal. Okay. And that just showed interoperability of identity within the ecosystem. Okay, so that was really, really impressive. And I think, like I mentioned, Lohan, Sean, and even Anushka, they are the drivers behind the decentralized identity initiative in South Africa, if not world-class specialists. So you're getting, what can I say? You're getting a level of knowledge that's on par excellence. Then I also want to just basically give some personal reflections and some personal observations of today. Today, the session for me was surreal. And why I say surreal? Because it was real on two dimensions. Number one, we had
speakers that gave us real-world insights, practical implementations of what's happening. So that's the one reality. And the second reality is I felt just at home here at the UJ Bunting Road campus. And the reason for that is in 1999, I qualified at this campus. It was not UJ at the time, it was the former Wits Technikon. But when I came in here and when I stepped in here, I felt just at home. There was no nervousness, and I just felt at home and just did what we needed to do. So that was surreal for me to be here. And I think what I want to do in closing, I want everybody to stand up. Please stand up. Firstly, I want to give a round of applause to Professor Namdi for hosting such a successful event and getting such high caliber of speakers. So thank you very much. Cool. And second, I want you all to give a round of applause to yourselves. Number one, for staying till so late. Number one, for being here, because being here obviously tells me that you want to learn about blockchain, and in order to learn, you have to be willing to be learned. So thank you all, and another big round of applause for being here. Okay. And then, ladies and gentlemen, it just doesn't stop here. I think what we heard blockchain technology, but it's not just technology. It's technology, it's collaboration, and it's curiosity that will take us forward. So if you met people, if you met the speakers, feel free to connect with them, ask questions, get the email addresses from Professor Namdi, and let's take things forward. And with that, I want to say thank you very much. You've been a great audience. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.